Exclusive.
Hey RedEye, this is Christopher Abbott. I'm here for the movie James White. Thanks for watching, and please check it out when it comes out in theaters November 27th.
What was your name?
Jane?
I wasn't trying to hit on you before. I was just being genuine and asking if you want to just come hang out with my friends. You got acid?
An adult with no money and no job.
We always thought you'd end up in jail.
In researching about you in this movie for this interview, it's interesting that you didn't even think about being an actor until you were 20 or so, and didn't know what at that time you kind of didn't know what you wanted to do before then. Are you someone who is kind of relaxed in that feeling of the unknown, or do you get nervous when you're kind of not sure what's going on that way?
No, I think I kind of like it. I think I don't get nervous in that way. I mean, by now I feel pretty solid as an actor, and I feel like this is what I'm going to be doing with most of my life. But
what about at that time? Were you kind of concerned that there are a lot of people who are 20 who don't have a specific direction.
I mean, at that age, it's all a bit kind of confusing anyway. I mean, I guess maybe I started a little bit later than most people, but no, I mean, I would have. The thing is, if I had known about acting the way I do now, then of course I would be nervous and jealous that I wasn't able to do it. But I didn't even know about it at that time. It wasn't even it wasn't realistic in my head yet.
Sure.
So there was nothing to be scared of missing out on yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this movie is so intimate, and your performance works on so many levels without trying for it, which I think is much harder to do than people appreciate.
That's nice of you.
It opens with you out at a bar by yourself.
Yeah. If
you had to generalize, when people go out to a bar alone, does that tend to be more honorable or sad or otherwise?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on the time of night it is, where you're alone.
Where's the distinction?
Yeah, I mean, if it's evening cocktail hour, I'm sure that's kind of fun. I like doing that. I like in New York, it's nice to kind of go and sit at a bar. I guess some places it can feel uncomfortable to do that, but if it's 4 a.m, it's probably a little dire and sad.
If you're walking in at 4 by yourself,
exactly. Yeah.
Maybe you have an agenda at that time.
Yeah, you're not looking for the right things at that point.
So how often, just on occasion, you just like to wander into a bar, just hang out and see where the night goes, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess with no plan in mind sometimes, but early evening, and then eventually, meet up with friends at some point. But it's nice to go have a drink by yourself sometimes.
How good are you?
People watch,
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, how good are you at ignoring the impulse to because there have been reports saying that the number of people who go out to dinner by themselves has skyrocketed because everyone's just on their phone their whole time. It's well, I don't feel alone. I'm just looking at my phone.
Oh, really?
Are you able to kind of resist that impulse when you go out to a bar by yourself?
Yeah. I think that's a nice part of it. And because then people, I guess, notice you more if you're if you're distracted by your phone, or sometimes if you're just sitting there and just staring off at everybody, you can get weird looks too. But no, I mean, it's nice to sit at a bar and people watch. If it's the right place. Sure.
Well, you've talked about kind of appreciating, and I think you're right, that this movie shows the importance of some of the day-to-day stuff when you're taking care of your mom, played by Cynthia Nixon, getting her a Tylenol. Most movies don't show this version of this story. Why do you think that is? Is it because the assumption is that viewers are too impatient for details, or why do you think that this is kind of uncommon?
I don't know. I mean, I guess on paper some of those things can kind of seem like mundane tasks or scenes, when they're that simple in a way. But I think it's just about the honesty in which you put into it, And Josh, the writer director and my dear friend, I mean, he even on the script he put that honesty on the page, and as long as there's always a reason behind it and some kind of motivation behind it in that sense, I think it becomes recognizable for people, and then in turn kind of becomes entertaining, for lack of a better word.
So what do you see as kind of the more conventional version of this then? Because it seems like you wouldn't have been interested if that was the approach taken.
Well, I mean, you know, if you know, the bad version of this movie is that by the end he like goes off on a plane or something like that and like decides to become a writer or so, you know what I mean? It's not because it's not necessarily about the triumph of one man's struggle, you know, in that sense. It's kind of it's more concentrated in that way, and you know, there's not as much of a time. There's no time lapse in that way. It's in a concentrated. It's over the span of a few months, you know. So it's really, I feel like it's just really about the specific details and all the little gestures and scenes.
As an actor, do you feel like you are able to express more with words or silence?
I mean, I guess I do a lot of plays, you know. So maybe those are more the writer's medium and more dialogue oriented. I mean and then when filling in the gaps of silence is always kind of fun. I mean, I like both. I mean, I think both are equally important. But then what's left unsaid can be really powerful sometimes. And I don't mean that speaking on behalf of myself and just in general of seeing cinema.
Growing up, were you someone who always felt like it was kind of easy to access and express your emotions?
I mean, I guess when you're 14 or 13 and you're just extremely vulnerable, you know, naturally, you know, you can, yeah. I mean, anger comes easily and all those things. And as you get older, I mean, I guess you start to get a little bit more jaded, you know, or so it's nice. It's nice as an actor to kind of to keep that naivete, you know, in your life.
What would you say that, like, in the period of growing up, like, were you know, James, he yells in this movie, gets in fights, he headbutts someone, steals liquor, slaps someone. Obviously, he's going through a ton of stuff, which thankfully you were not going through at the time. But were you kind of someone who, when expressing yourself, did, you know, a lot of people when they're young have trouble kind of staying away from that volatility? Would you feel like because you're so, like, I think you do a great job in this movie of making all of this feel real. And I'm wondering, like, when you were younger, what level did that expression of emotion hit for you most commonly?
Well, I guess I wouldn't. I guess I'm not as volatile, you know, as maybe the James White character. But I mean, growing up, I feel like everyone's kind of gotten in fights, and you know, over juvenile, nothing, you know. So, but even just watching, like, you know, picking up on things like watching my friends get in fights in that way, and being around for that, you know, you pick up on that kind of I guess machismo energy, and you pick up on why you were like that at that age. So yeah, I mean, I've had experiences, but not quite like in the movie.
Yeah.
You know?
You think most people have been in a fight by the time they make it through adolescence?
It's hard to say. I mean, I feel like yeah, yes. I mean, I would say yes, but I feel not everyone would.
Yeah, I haven't.
Would you? I mean, would you?
I feel like many probably have. Part of me wonders if maybe I should have at some point as like a not now, but like if that's kind of an element.
But even like with a good friend over like a video game or something, you know, you wind up like scrapping or doing, you know,
well, as
even
maybe like
on that level,
yeah,
you know?
As a healthy like way of
exercising, like exercising those kinds of,
well, on a semi-related note, you know, we've talked about wanting people to sort of be brought back to childhood with some of their movie experiences. What's a movie that does that for you?
Like movies that are nostalgic for me.
Yeah, it makes you think of things in your childhood.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I used to, when I was a kid, I used to watch movies over and over again, like the same movie over.
Oh,
and
yeah?
over. Yeah. So even I remember, let's see, like Mrs. Doubtfire. I
You
would
watch
watch.
that over
I
and
love
over?
that movie. I mean, I still do, and that movie still holds up. You know, I think it's a beautiful. But like movies like that, I would just watch over and over and over again. So I mean, that to me, that movie, the first Batman. You know, like those movies are real nostalgic for me.
What did you enjoy so much about Mrs. Doubtfire at the time?
I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, and the comedy in it is so. I mean, it's so like what Robin Williams does, and that's so subtle and hilarious. Yeah.
Can you, if you had to reenact a line or a scene from there, because I'm sure there are movies I've watched over and over again that I feel like I know more dialogue than I would probably be.
Yeah, I mean,
admit.
like when he just like when he would say things under his breath, like when they're at the pool thing, and he throws like the lime at Pierce Brosnan's head. And then like he says like, touch me again and I'll drown you. Like you know, so like he says like really subtly under his breath. Like I love that stuff.
You like the sort of mumbled.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. That's funny that you would mention that then as just evidence of like an emotional outburst that's like muted.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think that those are fun to watch. Something kind of under the surface.
Yeah. Well, I realize the word fun may not really work here, but would you be able to say which felt more? Is there a sense of fun when you compare, saying like filming a party scene versus like a quiet emotional scene?
In James White or just in general?
In James White.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a vast difference in the feeling. I mean, when we were shooting too, we were lucky enough schedule-wise to kind of group those scenes together separately. You know what I mean? So all the scenes where James is taking care of his mother, we would do in a certain amount of days. You know, kind of group them together. So at least for my own mindset, it was nice to be able to do all the I guess party fun, for lack of a better word, fun things over a span of days, and then the scenes between me and Cynthia kind of were a lot of them were grouped together too. Yeah, there's a huge difference, and the fun scenes are fun, and the Mexico, the whole Mexico section of the scene. I mean, we shot that at the end of the shoot when we went to Mexico, and I mean that was a blast. It was a small crew that went. The actors that went, we did a lot of fun improvising there. It was great. I
feel like that's something people often, or at least I do, often wonder about when there's like a big party sequence in a movie, which in your mind is being faked. So like, does that?
But the thing is, even in Mexico, it's not even a party. It's like they're just like 4 people on acid. you know what I mean? And so we were just like rolling around Mexico with a blanket over our heads and getting to do that.
True.
Yeah.
Well, as far as that, the quieter, intimate stuff, how much did you feel like that kind of took out of you?
I mean, the movie as a whole. I mean, it felt like a marathon in a way, because we shot in such a short amount of time, and even thinking back on it now, it feels a bit like a blur, or it feels like it was a whole one long big scene that we did. I mean, I think you mentally prepare yourself when I knew what I was getting into. I made this with a dear friend of mine. I was able to work on it for a year and a half before we actually started shooting it. I got to read it a bunch. So I mean, I knew I was prepared, and I knew what I was getting into in terms of not just the places that I had to go, but the ones that everyone had to go to. And I think everyone kind of had that mentality, and we're pretty gung ho about it. So when everyone's doing their job in that way, I think it makes your job easier.
Did you have a moment at all, like? Because I'm sure as you're filming and as you're working on it, it's all like confined to the experience. But was there a moment after wrapping it all that sort of the weight of, because I mean those scenes that you have with Cynthia are especially the kind of the, I won't tell people what happens towards the end, but there's one that's just a long take and is devastating. I wonder if like a week later it sort of settled on you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get in retrospect, and I think you get that feeling in retrospect. While you're doing it, again, it's so day to day. I mean, we would wake up, we would shoot, and then we'd be done at night, and you have to go to bed so you can wake up early again the next day and shoot, and that it just becomes this day to day thing. And then in retrospect, you can kind of look back on it, and it's like, wow, we did a lot. We did, and not just the acting. I mean, everybody and people were working hard on this film,
Sure.
and when everyone is so good at their jobs and has such a good attitude about it, it is kind of a euphoric feeling when you're done. You can pat yourself on the back a little bit, and you're like, yeah, we did it.
Though not like this, we've certainly seen some other movies where a character is told, "Get off my couch and grow up, please."
Yeah.
How much do you feel like millennials are being underestimated with that sort of being an overriding like theme on screen, and also sort of feels like filtering into society too?
Yeah, I mean, although I don't. Maybe this is just my opinion, but I don't feel like James White is too much of a movie about a millennial. At the core of it, I really think it's just a relationship about a mother and son.
Right, for sure.
I mean, it does, of course, just so happen that he's a little bit lost in his life. So I don't want to go as far as say it's a remark. It's a remark on society for young people in that way. But yeah, I mean.
Well, if anything, I think this movie shows that he's so multifaceted, and that even though there's an aspect of him that is in denial, is really struggling to deal with what he's going through, he is completely capable of stepping up when life kind of forces you to figure out where your priorities are.
Right, and also there's even for all his decisions, there's at least for us making it, there's a reason behind everything, and whether an audience can justify it for themselves or not, that's totally up to them. But I mean, at least we would at least talk about why he is the way he is, and define it. Whether it's in his torn feelings about his father in the beginning of the movie, and then what he's dealing with his mother, and not having his best friend around when he needs him. Whether those are good enough reasons for him to act the way he acts, that's up to whoever watches it. But at least we tried our best to define it for ourselves, to try and then make it feel as honest as possible in the movie.
On a lighter note, what tips do you have for someone who wants to know how to pick up a girl at the beach?
Just go see James White and don't do what he did.